Hello everybody, it's Alex. Last time, hopefully, if I've sequenced these videos correctly, we spoke about planning out your life. What are things that, how to live your life in a way that you get like the best return out of it, avoiding distractions, avoiding pitfalls, um, knowing like what is an acceptable amount of risk to take to do something, and what is the level of risk you need to just be comfortable with in order to maybe achieve things higher than like the average to go above like the general population of something. Today, I figured it would be kind of fun to share some examples of this from my life, and we will treat these as unfortunately there's no video content, but yeah, this is this is something I've had rolling around the back of my mind. This is the time sink tier list, as reported by me, in terms of what were the best and worst uses of my time over the years, reflecting. Obviously, I'm only 25. I have achieved, and let's lay our cards out on the table. I'm 25. I have friends and family that I speak with, that I'm close with. I have a beautiful fiance whom I've been in a relationship with for the past 7.5 years or so. I'm employed as a software engineer, a DevOps at a startup, at like a startup studio, I suppose it is. And I have achieved, pretty good success in that realm of software engineering, in career building, all this and that. And I enjoy, spending my free time with the idea of one day releasing an independent video game. Of that is like my real like dream goal for myself there. Okay, so what what? Let's start from the bottom. The bottom. I think these will be the most interesting of what were like the big time sucks. And some of these are more abstract. I think some are like a little concrete, or a bit more concrete. But we can see what was going on. So let's see. At the very bottom, I would put like probably over-indexing myself on just like scrolling through brain rot content on the internet. Scrolling is like maybe one of the single worst return on time invested activities you can partake in, because it's all basically just turning your brain on autopilot. It's turning your brain off. It's letting something else dictate the information that comes into your mind, letting someone else determine like what things are important, and it can lead you down some pretty bad paths of like this, just scrolling through Reddit or Twitter or whatever the hell it is for long enough. You're going to be reprogramming your brain to essentially be just like the median take of whatever you see on these things. If you just go in and are like just consuming, you are what you eat, right? And if your information diet is this very low quality disposable trash, then your thoughts will have the foundation of low quality disposable trash, and even worse, it's trash that you don't even own. This is someone else's garbage. I think we've chased that one down far enough. And that's how you end up with a huge population of people who maybe have some sort of expertise and some knowledge on like their their profession, on like, their day-to-day life, and whatever they've studied, right? And this is possible. But like if you like ask them to have thought outside of that sphere, they're just going to regurgitate to you whatever the safe internet opinion is that they've seen a whole bunch of times, that may be totally logically inconsistent with what their rest of their purported value structure and way they live their life is. And so I think everybody has this to some extent, but like, this is that's like NPC behavior right there. Of like, this is, that is where you're not the one doing the thinking. You're just giving some sort of generic default response, like as if you were a disposable character in an RPG, right? And so you definitely don't want to do that. You definitely do not want to be spending any significant amount of your time with this, because you very well could be doing irreversible damage to your life and to your brain, going down those paths and picking up a bunch of really poor and poorly thought out ideas that parasitize you. Okay, so that's like a pretty easy bottom tier thing, right? We could say that. Lower tier, I think we have a bunch of of things that have maybe some sort of value as art, art and entertainment, but ultimately things that are still like lower quality, that are not really you're not able to take something meaningful out of it. And so let me explain that. I'm not trying to denigrate or completely ignore the value of art. Obviously, like my goal in life, as I've said, is to produce some kind of art in the form of a video game, and to do that, you have to consume a lot of that thing, and you have to consume a lot of many things that allows you to that allows you to have like this basis to build off of, to create something new, right? You must expose yourself to some great quantity of ideas, and hopefully interesting ideas, in order to create something that is very meaning dense, right? Meaning dense and hopefully utility dense as well. And that's where you can maybe reclaim some value out of these things, of even like these low value things. But what I'm talking about here, and essentially is, there are still like there's a level above just like scrolling on social media of that kind of disposable content, is the kind of like disposable crappy content that is from more like traditional media. So if you were to spend all day watching TV, just like random shows on TV, random stuff on syndication, a lot of the stuff out there is not very well produced. It's not very well thought out. It purports to have hit some sort of quality benchmark to have gotten on TV, right? So there is a gatekeeping aspect to it, which like maybe elevates it beyond like just social media disposable content, but also there's obviously a whole bunch of limitations on that too. But everybody knows, like, it is just incredibly easy to turn your brain off and just be watching, binge watching, like even like Netflix or something. And maybe you're getting something out of it, or maybe you're really just you're killing time with with things that are maybe entertaining in the moment, but not things that that will lead to some sort of meaningful insight change in your life, or whatever it is, right? And this is different for everybody. Everybody is getting something different out of all of these things. But objectively, if you were to look at like the average History Channel slop show or something versus like like Twin Peaks season 3, like, oh my god, like the like I'm just thinking of like the amount of shows that I've seen over the years, the amount of time like I've spent just watching stuff that has left zero impression, zero impact on me, and just has totally bounced off. And in doing that, like that, if we were to look at that as like an investment of your very precious time, that's not a good one, right? If like your whole takeaway from doing something is I killed an hour, what you're really doing is you're killing yourself by 1,000 cuts, right? you're every one of those hours that you waste away is an hour that takes away from the person that you could have been, from the things that you could have done, the family and friends you could have been with, and that obviously is still incredibly poor, an incredibly poor use of time. All right, and if we're going to continue, right? I think the next step would be skills or knowledge that are fairly interesting, that you can think about, that do add something to your life, but are ultimately not closely aligned enough with your main pursuit, where it is like diluting the possibility of like what you could be doing, and so let's walk through that. So you can be spending your life in pursuit of many different things. Let's say you're someone who wants to be like a rock climber and a scuba diver, and you want to be a poker champion, and you want to be a house flipper, and you're trying to do 50 different things all at the same time, and the problem is that you can spend time on all of these different things, but ultimately you don't have enough to do everything, right? And so what you're demonstrating is a lack of focus, a lack of cohesion in your in the way that you live your life, and that will lead you down a path where you will not be able to see as many of these things through as you wanted, right? You cannot chase every rabbit as much as I do in my apartment. my rabbit does like to be to run around a little bit. So there are plenty of things in my life where I think that they have been fun. I have learned some kind of interesting skill. Maybe there's been some piece of it that has been cool or useful, or I've gained some kind of connection out of it. But ultimately, there has been like it's not it's maybe not 100% there. And if we were to look, there are quite a number of these. As a I think I made it in my mind some sort of goal, which is maybe not the best idea, but the goal to be like the uber nerd, to pursue and have pursued every single one of the classic nerdy hobbies and interests, so that I could have this like deep foundation and understanding from like a cultural point of view of all this nerdy stuff, but then also because it's kind of fun and interesting, right? And so here is like the walkthrough of that, and I'm going to classify a lot of these interests around this level here. So obviously, or I don't know if so obviously, I don't know how much of my how much about me you really know, but I've spent maybe like the past 12 years reading a lot of comic books. I think I've read total 14 or 15,000 comic books. And so that's like 1,000 comics a year, which is a lot. And I bought most of these, which is a lot of money. Not very good use of time and money. And I learned so much from reading these comics. I had always been interested in like in superheroes, in the superhero mythology and the stories, and that's kind of like what I wanted to get into comics for, was just kind of like read through all of Spider-Man and really know this character that I had grown up being super interested in at this like better level. But what I found along the way was this like this fantastic medium with all of this room for imaginative storytelling that just doesn't exist anywhere else. All these interesting like technical details of how and operational details of like how comics are put together, how like art and drawing really kind of like works on this deeper level, and understanding of sequential art and storytelling, as well as comic industry and character history. And there's some gigantic percentage of my brain that is now devoted to random comic book trivia, right? But I think Alan Moore probably said it best. When when you are one of the people that can offhand recall the secret identity name of Chameleon Boy from the Legion of Superheroes, maybe you have gone too far. Maybe that's a bit too much of your brain devoted to that thing. And perhaps your time would have been better spent elsewhere, doing something that lines up more closely with the meaningful things that you want to get out of your life. And of course, there are a couple things in here. There's the cost of doing all this in terms of time and money, incredibly high to like an unreasonable amount, which is very, very bad, and definitely does not align with the the lifestyle that I want to have of being quite lean and efficient in like the way I operate. Like the 14,000 comic books is like is literally hundreds, maybe like 1,000 or more hours of like just reading. And again, some large percentage of that is lower quality work, because not everything, and especially in a regularly published serial like this, is really any good. As a medium, like you can have really good stuff in there. You could have like a space where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? But like especially in the older days of comics, a lot of these things were treated as kind of like disposable kid stories, and so like the amount of depth you can get out of them is maybe not always there, and you have to look. Like the original Fantastic Four run is closer, existed and was made closer to that era of disposable kid stories, but like the ideas and the art in there, and all that fantastic stuff it is a gold mine, if you have this like creative bent, if you're interested in pursuing a lot of these things. And like there's the proof of that is in how much how successful like the superhero movie market has been, at translating these ideas to a more mass market vehicle, and astonishing people with this combination of heroic myth with incredible imagination, of unbounded imagination and insight, that have created very, very unique, very cool stories that you're not really getting anywhere else. So there's that. Comics for me that's like a mixed bag one of like, I love comics. I love my time reading comics and collecting them. I met a whole bunch of people. I spent a whole bunch of time like getting really good at that, getting very knowledgeable at that thing. But at some point, you have to really look and say, it's like, what is it that I want to do with my life? Is what is like my main pursuit in life reading comics produced by someone else? No. Or I may have been treating it like that, but it probably shouldn't be. Is it like, and then you have to look at like, okay, do I want to get into this industry? Is that feasible at all? Maybe, but like the comic industry is maybe not that nice a place to be in, first of all, and a lot of my talent stack doesn't really closely align with it, so I don't know. And so I guess like the recouping is really just going to be in that experience of having done something like that, of done that much reading and collecting, and the ideas and stories that I get to take away with me, and knowledge of how that craft and how a space works on a deep level. And that I think is useful. That I think is knowledge that when you spend countless hours, literally countless hours doing something and getting and learning about something, that is a interesting, useful skill. That is an interesting, useful part of your brain that most people will not have, because they did not sink 10,000 hours into reading random issues of Superboy from the 1960s. But here's the but. Not every skill, not every piece of knowledge is equal. Is equal in its worth. It is equal in its value. And like people have ideas all the time. People have knowledge that obviously doesn't translate or it doesn't become useful. All you have to do is look at the fact that there exists a massive disparity in like salary by college degree, by like undergrad degree, right? Of some of the things that you study, like these things are not as high earners as other things. And like that's not to say like all of the value is in the earnings potential of something, but it's like a good representation of how many people and what kind of external value they do place on that. Of people are willing to pay for things that they think are going to be useful, important to them. And so that's where I would put that pursuit, as well as like a number of other pursuits like sort of related to that. I spent some time with Warhammer, learning Warhammer lore and painting miniatures and stuff. Not the best return on investment of time. Made some interesting connections that way, and actually learning the painting, and technically doing painting of miniatures was pretty fun. I did have a lot of fun in the moment doing that, And maybe there are some things that has taught me about art and color theory that I just really did not have any grasp of, any grasp of until I kind of got boots on the ground doing that. But ultimately, I don't think that in my life I'm going to really be a visual artist like that. And so ultimately, that is not that's not a use of my time that is going to be like directly affecting me. And then there's I spent a lot of time with like Magic the Gathering, a bunch of like nerdy TV shows, games, all this stuff. Maybe one higher level than like a lot of those, I would put the time I spent with okay, we're still in the uber nerd stuff here. The time I spent be learning how to become like a dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons and running a game, and that added value on a couple of different dimensions. And this is another thing that I pursued very, very strongly. What it did was allow me to spend a lot of time with my friends, and get to do a lot of cool hangouts and fun stuff, and gave me an outlet for like a creative outlet for a lot of ideas that I had swirling around for all this stuff. So it was some sort of like recouping of that, and spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time like learning the technical craft of dungeon mastering, as well as the a lot of like the background in like this myth and folk story, as well as like RPG type stuff, and that knowledge lines up a lot closer with what my video game creating idea for myself does than a lot of these other pursuits, because being a dungeon master is being a game designer, and not just a game designer, but one that is actively participating and changing things on the fly, as you have people going through the scenario you prepared. And that is actually really good experience. That is actually really, really interesting, a really interesting use of that time to figure out. It's like, okay, like I am like and this happened many times like while I was running a game of D&D. Is okay, I think we're kind of going to be running through like a dungeon at some point. Okay, like here is like my naive idea of like, well, what a dungeon should be. It's like, we have a couple of rooms here. There's like some goblins over here. There's like a bad guy boss over here. We got some treasure, right? Okay, let's run the dungeon. Okay, and then we go through it. Dungeon sucks. Okay, all right, that's fine. Next dungeon. Maybe let's take some bits and pieces from, everybody likes Legend of Zelda, right? So what if we did like a Zelda dungeon-inspired thing? Okay, here are the thing. We got some things that worked, some things that didn't. Okay, let's look at like the back catalog of published like dungeons and adventure modules. Let's look at like what people in this space are claiming works or not. Let's play in some other people's games and see like how they run dungeons, like what works, what doesn't for them, and that like over time is like, okay, now I have like a pretty good grasp, I would hope, on like what you do to create and run a tabletop RPG dungeon, and session and campaign and all these things, and again, like it's not quite the thing that I want to be doing, but it is pretty darn close. There are, we're going to go delve very deep, closely on this right now. There are a number of things that don't, one-to-one translate between video games and tabletop RPGs. This is the medium change problem, and this is like, I think like when you're creating something, like you think, okay, porting a thing from one place to another, that's like not a hard problem at all. You're just like moving shit, and then maybe there's like some sort of like little like dangly bits on the end you have to button up. That's fine. No, it never is. It never works like that, because fundamentally, like these different media, these platforms are always different enough where you realize that some of your core axiomatic understandings of like how to design, how to run things, just do not apply in the same way from thing to thing. And so that's where it becomes not as efficient a use of time. It's like, okay, I can spend a whole bunch of time learning Dungeons and Dragons, but that and that will give me some sort of like baseline knowledge of a lot of this stuff. But ultimately, like if you want to be really good at video games, at designing video games, you have to be designing video games and not Dungeons and Dragons games. And so that's why I think for me that this still falls a little bit lower on that tier list. All right, so now we're approaching the office here, so we're moving on up to the upper level of things that I think have very clearly just been net positive, net benefit all around. We'll start with and I, at this point, I think these things are kind of in like interchangeable order. I haven't. I think I would need another hour to really say like definitively like what is the rank ordering of these things. But we have like the pursuits that I think are that most closely align with the thing you're trying to do. Which for me is like making a video game. So learning programming, learning ideas about video game design, spending my time actually writing video games and getting knowledge of that, and spending my time with people with whom that is their chief concern. That obviously that is the use of my time that forwards that pursuit the most. And that is the most closely aligned. But what that doesn't do is fulfill right now my basic needs and other concerns, right? And those I think also must exist at this highest level of this top tier of things that you are vital to and are the most important to spend your time on, and that is like getting really good at your job, making those connections in the workplace that allow you to advance your career and just get the money and freedom, buy the money and freedom that you need to do what it is you want. That is spending time with friends and family, ones that are love you and support you, and because obviously you can also have relationships with people that are a net negative. And I'm not here today to go walk through all of that, but you obviously know like not all relationships are the same, but like the relationships that are important, that is like the number one most important thing in your life. Of like my fiance, my relationship with her, that is like fundamentally my life, and there is not anything that is really more important than that. And all the things that I do are to keep me happy, financially stable, intellectually stimulated enough where I can take my best self into that relationship and continue building that life with her and for myself, right? That is, I think that's like the number one. And then there are these concerns, these pursuits of mastery of the body and the mind. So things like eating right, nailing down that nutrition, nailing down your sleep, nailing down your fitness, and treating those as a priority, because those things just open so many doors. And like, no matter what pursuit you're in, you need energy. You need energy to do it, and you get energy by focusing on these things, and you know, and having enough of them to really to leverage when you need it. If you need to be, pull an all-nighter, you need to be able to. If you need to lift a heavy object, you need to be able to. Because if you don't have like these core capabilities, if you don't have this core foundation of your physical life as a physical being, you're gonna have a lot of freaking problems, just achieving the things day to day. If you are if you like are never getting enough sleep, because you're staying up all night, doing whatever it is people do up all night, and you wake up in the morning like barely able to get out the door, you're not going to do a good job at work. Which is not going to allow you to further your career and get the money you need. And you're certainly not going to be able to have time for any other pursuits once you get home for the day, right? And so these things are critical. They're critical at buying you the best quality of life and of time and energy you can, in the moment, in the now, but also investing they're an investment in your future of like, you will get more time on the earth to do things, if you have a healthy body and healthy lifestyle. If you die of a coronary at age 58, then that is maybe like taking off 40 years where you could have continued your pursuits. You could have continued your like generating things, generating wealth, generating art, writing the novel, right? That not only are helping you, but also, at that point, your family, your children, the world, right? And you're denying everybody of decades of whatever it is like you built yourself up to be. And so that is just absolutely a critical thing. And on that, on there too, like, we have a couple of other pursuits that I think are also just like having at least some sort of like baseline thing, spending some amount of time where you understand them at at least basic level, allow you to continue this your independent existence, which I think that's the goal, is being able to be to have enough knowledge to know what it is you should spend your time doing on a given thing, or what is the important thing. I think that is like ultimately the key here, right? Because you need to know, and you should spend some amount of your time learning your finances, learning what you need to be investing in, like what your strategy is for that. You don't need to be an expert on this thing, unless that is your profession, unless that is like your main concern is investing and all this stuff. But you need to have some sort of like baseline level of knowledge of that in order to keep your finances afloat and keep the ship moving forward. My metaphors are just all over the place today. But that's like one of those critical things. There are a list of like critical things that you just need to know how to do to live in a society, as Arthur Fleck once said. And those things, like I think a lot of them are pretty high on that list, but they can also turn into distractions, like if you go maybe too far down them. Like for example, like you are you should learn how to dress nice and dress appropriately for your body type and the situations that you're in. Because what that does is it acts as a signal, right, to other people that you're well put together enough, that your life is well put together enough, where they could see you. They could see you as someone who that they can trust and believe in. And you've probably heard the saying, it's like, we didn't promote the person, we promoted their clothes, basically. And obviously, in the real world, you kind of have to have both, but like, the clothes are important too. It is not like if you're in any sort of situation where you are your path forward is dependent on how other people see you, then you need to be putting some amount of time into your appearance and how other people see you, right? That is just like that's a fact. But obviously it is incredibly easy to go so far down the appearance rabbit hole where that becomes your only concern, and then that takes away from your time. Spend your time doing those meaningful, deep things with your life. And if you're spending so much energy like buying new sneakers and like doing your hair in the morning, rather than learning your craft, like you've gone wrong, and that's where things sink. So that's pretty much it for today's episode. I hope that was somewhat of an interesting one, right? I like these are. I think we've talked about this topic, sort of related things in the past. This is something like this is one of the things that swirls around in my mind the most, of like what actually is it that I need to be doing, and what is it that I need to be not doing not doing with my time in order to do the things that I want to do. And so I hope that was a little bit educational, a little bit interesting. And if you have any thoughts of your own about like what are things that you consciously had to give up, what are things you consciously added to your life in order to achieve your goals, like what things did you find that worked or didn't, please leave those down in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, and return back next time for whatever it is we'll talk about then. So thank you all very much for listening. Have a wonderful day.